What up, what up? Here we are with another Total Human Optimization podcast with a totally optimized human, Gustavo Yacaman. Welcome here, man. Thanks for coming by the On It HQ.
No, man, it's a pleasure to be here. Really cool offices, and got a little sweat at the On It Studios at the Academy.
You never know what's going to happen. You come by
no,
on it.
we're,
You might get a
we're
little...
gonna shoot a video. It shouldn't be nothing too hard. And now that I'm in there, and they're like, "Oh, come on, give me 5 more reps. I need to get this shot." I'm like, "Oh man."
Looks like you're sweating through a new shirt too, which is actually even harder than sweating through an old shirt.
Yeah,
they got that water resistance.
Yeah, man, it's
you really need to. That's good.
Yeah, it's good.
So you're in town here to do a little racing, do a little driving.
Yeah, so we got a race on Saturday, 3-hour race at COTA.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the best tracks in
COTA
America.
is Circuit of the Americas.
Circuit of the Americas, yeah.
Yeah, here in Austin.
Same track as F1. It's super nice track. Is the newest track in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And really looking forward to getting on track tomorrow afternoon.
So what kind of racing do you do? Because we may have people out there that don't know shit about racing.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit.
Well, we're into endurance racing. So I'm in the Tudor United Sports Car Championship. They call it TUSC, or IMSA is the headquarters, the people that arrange it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's endurance racing. So we go and we do 24 hours at Daytona. We do 12 hours at Sebring. We do 6 hours at Watkins Glen. And we do 10 hours at Road Atlanta. And then in between those races, we have shorter races that are 3 hours long and all around the country and Canada as well. So
wow.
It's all endurance based. It's 2 drivers for the short races and 3 to 4 drivers for the long races. So it's quite interesting, and it's really hard, not only on the machines but on your body as well. I mean, being up for 24 hours driving a race car at the limit is not so easy.
Yeah, I could imagine doing anything at that kind of heightened intensity for that long.
Yeah, and
I mean, podcasting for 24 hours would be exhausting. Just talking. I mean, I know what it's like to even just be switched on for that amount of time. In the 24-hour race like that in Daytona, how do you do the shifts? I mean, what's the breakdown there?
All right, so there's more or less average is three drivers per car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you drive around 3 hours, rest for 6 hours, get back on for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's how it works. And honestly, you're up for almost 48 hours because the race starts at 3 p.m., but you're up at 7, 8 a.m. You've got drivers meeting, media, interviews, blah, 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 so on. Race prep, you got to meet with your team, all of this. And then by 3 p.m., the race starts. So that's the easy part. 24 hours, 3 p.m. The next day, you're exhausted, you're tired, you do some more media, you have to debrief with the team, go over the race. If you've done well, then you've got the podiums and even more interviews. So you end up getting out of there by like midnight or even 1 a.m. after you help the guys pack a little bit and get out of the track. And then, of course, you got to celebrate, right? So it's a tough...
And then the celebration lasts for 48 hours, and then before you know it, you're up 100 hours straight.
No, so it's a tough weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But after that, we get a good break. So
I'm sure.
It's quite an experience. It's good fun, and it's tough. It's tough, but it's what I love. It's what I do.
I got a ton of questions for you, but first let's talk about the cars that you're driving in this so people get an adequate idea of what you're doing. What are the cars like?
All right, so it's a sport prototype. It's not a car that you see on the road. It's a car that's 100% designed for racing. It's got a racing engine. It's a Honda-based block, but then everything else is performance and racing.
So it looks closer to like an F1 car.
Sort of. It's the tires are closed, so the tires are covered by bodywork, just to make it safer and better for aero for the endurance. Because at Daytona and Le Mans, which are the 2 main races in endurance racing in the world, there's very, very long straights, and when you have the big tires uncovered out in the air, it causes a lot of drag. So in endurance racing, they tend to cover them, so it's more slick and it has a better top speed in this big
So
straight.
It's faster than an F1 car.
Oh yeah, it's way faster. Top speed is faster than F1. What F1 has better is the downforce. So they produce a lot more downforce, so they can go on the corners a lot quicker. So that's what the main difference is. F1 goes through the corners a little bit quicker, and they're lighter car. we since have a lot more body work, and our races are 24 hours, so you can imagine the brakes are bigger, all the suspension parts are bigger and tougher, the engine's going to be bigger and tougher. In F1, they change the engine every 2 or 3 races, and that equals to around like 6 to 8 hours of running time. Our engines have to do practice, qualifying, and race, which ends up being around 30 hours of running time. So of course they've got to be a lot heavier to be able to take on that load.
Right.
So in overall lap time at a track, it depends what track. At Le Mans, a Formula One car will not be quicker than us because there's massive straights. There's like a mile-long straight at Le Mans, which we do around 200, 210 miles an hour top speed. And F1 has a top speed of like 180, 190.
Right.
But then again, there's a fast corner that we can take at 160 miles an hour, and F1 can do it flat chap and 180. So that's where the differences are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the fastest, besides like a drag racer or something like that. It's the fastest race car out there.
Yeah. In this series, so in the series that I'm in, there's 4 classes. It's a little bit complicated, but bear with me. It's not as complicated as football, I can promise you that. I've lived 6 years in America, and I still don't understand the sport. So there's 4 classes. There's the prototype class, which is the one I'm in. It's the fastest cars. It's cars that you don't usually see on the road, and they're cars 100% meant for racing and were designed from the ground up to race. All right? Then we have a prototype challenge, which is prototype like ours. It's a little bit slower, so it's more cost efficient for teams that have less budget and drivers that don't have as much experience, so they can move their way up into the prototype class. Then we have the GT Pros, which are cars that you do normally see on the road, like BMW Z4s, Ferrari 458s, Corvette Z01s, Porsches 911. So it's like high-end sports cars that you do see on the road, but they have nothing from the road car, just sort of the body and not even. But they kind of resemble the street car, right? And they're driven by pros. They're driven by factory drivers, by pros, like us in the P class, but they're a little bit slower. But since they're road cars that you can go into the dealer and buy, supposedly, factories have a lot of interest in this class.
Right. And
then there's the GTM, which is sort of same GTs, race cars that Porsches, 911s, Ferraris, Corvettes, BMWs, like the same cars, but they're driven by less experienced people that they want to move their way up into the GTs or into just.
So it's like 4 classes of minor leagues or 3 classes of minor leagues in one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and we're all racing together. All right. So we're all on the same track together, and the racing is pretty crazy because we're around 10 seconds a lap quicker than the GTMs, and we really just fly past them. Yeah. And you gotta be careful because in some of these classes there's what we call them German dentists that are like really wealthy guys that have done really well in business, and they want to race, but honestly they're not the most talented people out there, and you just really need to look out for those people because I mean they're part of the sport, and it's part of the challenge, and it's part of what makes the sport fun.
Did dentists make a lot of money in Germany? I don't think dentists here could drive a race car.
Well, you'd be surprised.
And if they do, I'm fucking paying them way too much to clean my teeth.
You'd be surprised, but there are quite a bit. Uh-huh. And so you gotta look out for them because you can be passing them and they don't see you in their mirrors, and they can turn into you and cause a big crash. And
so it's crazy that you guys race at the same time with them. It's like putting little landmines out. In
It's
race.
Like it's like a video game.
Yeah, it's like Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's like Mario Kart. You gotta be careful not to hit the banana peel, or not get hit by a turtle or something like this. You know.
Do you have spotters being like, yeah, watch out for the dentist coming around?
Well,
up there, you're right.
It's funny. Last year I was with an American team, and Americans like to talk a lot. So we did have like 2 spotters per track, and like here that's a huge track. Maybe you would have even 3 spotters, and they would talk to you a lot and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And like watch out for this guy, watch out for that guy, and they would like really fill you up with this crazy amount of information.
Right.
This year I'm with a French team.
Uh-huh.
It's European, completely different, and basically we don't talk on the radio. They just
well, which is better?
Yeah, at the beginning they were like, "Man, you talk too much on the radio. You need to like tone it down a bit." Because I was used to the American way that you tell them about the car and about the race, and like you're always in communication.
Yeah.
But this guy's is like, man, you just focus on driving, and
we'll let you know if something's really important.
Yeah, if something's really important, we'll let you know. If not, just keep pushing and focus on your driving. Don't worry about anything else. We'll inform you if we need to, and that's it. And if we ask you anything, you tell us. If we don't, you just shut up and drive.
Yeah, so I'm trying to eat a baguette here. Like relax, we got you covered.
Yeah. So it's a different style, and I'm liking it. I like the French way. They're not. They even say it themselves. They're not so French. They're really cool guys. They're really open, and they've really taken me into the team. And,
that's great.
And it's been good. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because you're certainly not a German dentist. grew up in Colombia,
yeah,
right? And what was your path to entering this crazy elite field where only a handful of people in the world get to be a part of?
My dad was always into pushing us to sports. He when he was little, he was a cyclist, and then he played soccer, and he tore both of his ACL, so he couldn't play soccer anymore. And then he went into racing, into like small local rally racing and closed circuit racing and stuff like this. And when I was little, he pushed me into sports. He pushed me into tennis at first, and I don't know, I just didn't like to be hot and sweaty and running around chasing a ball. And then my sister was really big into golf. She finished like 5th in a junior world championships and stuff like this. Nice. So I was into golf. And I remember the first tournament I did in Colombia, we were like 5 years old. We couldn't carry our bags, so we had a caddy, and then it was a 5-some, and coming into the 9th hole, my dad could only see 4 kids. He's like, and I don't see Gus. I don't see my son. Where is he? And as we were getting closer, I was on the shoulder of my caddy because I was sick of walking.
Yeah.
So
like, this is an inefficient way to travel. Yeah. Get me behind the wheel.
So definitely golf wasn't my thing either. And soccer is really big in Colombia, and I tried soccer, but I can't hit a soccer ball to save my life.
Yeah.
I have no talent in soccer whatsoever. So finally he decided to get me into karting, and the first time I got behind the wheel, I killed it. I was really good. I was super quick in the little karting school that they did down there. And I was the fastest kid. I was super crazy. I didn't do the right lines or anything, but I was always flat out, and I ended up being the fastest. And so it just started super well, and I think I won my second ever race and finished 3rd on my first ever race. And it just clicked basically, and from that moment on, I've never thought of doing anything other than being a professional driver. Like, people ask me, so if you weren't a professional driver, what do you think you would be? What would you have liked to be? And I tell them, honestly, I've never thought about anything else.
Yeah, it's what you were born to do, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights of your career then?
Oh, man, I've had so many, and what I like to think about is that my highlight is somewhere in the future. My favorite race is yet to come. But I've had a lot of great moments in racing. Even this year, we had a really good win in Mosport Park. It was the first win of the year with this French team. It's brand new. It's the first time that they come into the U.S. They've won on every championship in the world, and it was really tough for us to get this first win. And it was just really, really good to win. Then I had a really good win in 2012, I believe. Yeah, 2012 in Baltimore. I got pole position in qualifying, but for some reasons, and there's a lot of politics in racing. It's a lot. It's horrible. That's the thing I hate the most about racing. It's politics. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of sponsors, and sometimes if you're not in the right side in politics, it sucks. And in this time, I wasn't in the right side of politics. After the qualifying, I got my pole position stolen away from me. I had to start in third because supposedly I did my fastest lap under yellow flag, but I had already passed the accident, blah, 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 whatever. So I started in third. I was super pissed on race day because they stole away my pole position.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second corner, I got hit from behind and I got spun around and I got sent to like 8th place or so. And I was even more pissed after this. And then I just drove my way through the field, and with 3 laps to go, I made a move for the lead and won the race.
So you drive well angry.
I drive.
Some people probably don't drive well angry.
No, some people. When I get angry, I get more focused.
Right.
For some reason, and that race, I just killed it. I was doing everything I needed to do and passed everyone the way I had to, and at home I have the front nose of the car.
Mm-hmm.
I tap behind a couple people to kind of scare them a bit, and the whole nose is like scratched and it's got holes all over it.
Like,
and it's right next.
What the fuck is going on with this guy over here?
And it's like right next to the trophy, so it's pretty cool. So that race was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I've had a good time racing.
It sounds like it. Like it. How close is racing to the movie Rush? Is there any similarities there?
Yeah, they did a really good job recreating the movie and being able to attract people to the movie that are not involved in racing and get them involved in it, and at the same time getting people that are involved in racing like the movie. Because there's been racing movies in the past, like I don't know if you watched Driven, and Driven it's a joke. I mean,
is that with Tom Cruise or something?
That was with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, Sylvester Stallone. No, missed that one. Sorry.
Picking up the pennies on the corners, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a little too much. And yeah, it might have been okay for non-racing fans, but for racing fans, it was a complete joke.
Right.
But the movie Rush was very well done, very well historically done. And it just represents what racing was in the past, which I think it was so much better. Yeah. There was a little bit less politics, and you know what they say, it was back when sex was safe and racing was dangerous.
So is the legend of Ricky Bobby historically accurate?
Oh my god. Ricky Bobby. So I mean, you got a guy like James Hunt that is complete playboy, probably had AIDS. And
just throwing that out there. I thought you said sex was safe and racing was dangerous.
Yeah, but and the race that James Hunt had sex, he must have picked up an STD here and there. It's just impossible not to have.
Okay.
And no, it was. And there's a really famous video of him right after he won a race, just giving an interview to someone, and then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, can I have a cigarette, please?" And then smokes while he gives the interview right after he finishes the race. You know, right now if you do that, it's like completely wrong. It's the idea of racing has changed so much, and it's become like it's not how it used to be. You know, before it was like fun and you were like at the top of the world and you were like in this super elite group of guys that are like daredevils and they don't care about risking their lives, and they're playboys, and they smoke and drink and do all these things, you know, and it's just different, you know. I'm not into alcohol and like crazy parties and stuff, but it's
just the sex.
The sex is not so bad.
That's the most important part of the James Hunt.
You're not as fast as you're on the track.
Sex is breakfast of champions, right? So
you need to bring that sponsor back.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I mean, it's just different kind of. Now it's like everything is so technical, and the driver really needs to be so focused, and it's so competitive that every little thing makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know, back then, there was a massive difference in between the cars, and a massive difference in between the drivers, and I don't know, it just worked differently. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a different ambiance, different. Now it's just. It's turned so professional. There's so many drivers and so many teams and so many factories, and like your sponsor doesn't want you partying around and being a playboy, basically.
Right.
You know, you got to have a blue collar.
Sure. Yeah, it's a part of a much bigger machine now, and every different part is kind of partitioned out, and you have.
But I mean, it's okay. It's better than a desk job from 9 to 5.
Okay. And I'm sure your life is still pretty interesting.
I can't.
If we had the off-air podcast, I'm sure there'd still be some stories in there.
I can't
certain
complain.
tracks. Yeah. So in doing this, though, racing in general has probably an underappreciated fitness element to it. People don't understand the kind of demands that are required on the body. But endurance racing has to be at the peak of that.
Yeah.
You guys have to be probably in the best shape of any drivers. And so tell us a little bit about your preparation, getting your body ready for the race, getting your mind ready, getting ready for that kind of challenge.
All right. So basically, when you think about driving, you don't think about it being physical. When you're driving down the road, stopping at the stoplight, maybe going to get some groceries, it's not really physical, right? It's not stressful, not physical. You can text and drive. You're not supposed to do so, but 95% of the people do. And it's just not a stressful or physical situation, right? But when you're on a racetrack, when your life is on the line, basically, if you make the smallest mistake, you're off into a tire wall in a $500,000 car, and maybe you can leave it unrepairable very easily. There's a little more stress. You're also doing 200 miles an hour, braking to 60 miles an hour, and taking a corner at 2.5 Gs. It gets a little more physical. So the physical aspect is important, but if you get in the car, well, no, you're fit. If someone normal gets in the car,
look right action.
that was. If that guy gets in the car.
No, like just someone that's not like crazy into fitness gets in the car. They can drive it for 2, 3, 4 laps at sort of high speed, right?
Right.
But then the problem comes when fatigue sets in. Then you start thinking, oh, my shoulder hurts a little bit. Oh, my leg is hurting when I brake. And that takes away concentration off from the job in hand, which is driving the car at the absolute limit. When you're driving the car at the absolute limit, you have certain reference points around the track. So on this corner, you're braking right when the curb starts, and you have your turning point when the curb ends, and then somewhere in between that and the apex, you want to start feeding the throttle and opening your hands, and you also have to feel how the fuel load is going down and making the car faster, but at the same time the tire wear is going up and the car is sliding a little bit more.
Constant calculations.
So you're always constantly thinking and calculating things and being aware of the car, and also being aware of the German dentists and there's so much going on, okay, and your brain has to be 100% focused on everything that's going on, that if you have a little bit of fatigue, you're starting to think, oh, my shoulder is hurting in this corner. So then that starts taking away concentration away from the job in hand. So that's when the fitness comes into play. I'm probably overtrained to what I need to do in the car, but it's important that I am so, because then I can focus 100% on the driving.
Yeah, it's just not an issue.
And not worry about being tired. So that's when the fitness aspect comes into the racing, because if you're well prepared, if you're strong enough, if your endurance is good enough, then you can focus 100% on driving the car to its limit and doing your job that you have to do. And if you don't, if there's the slightest mistake, boom, you're in the wall, race is over, and the job of 20 people in the team, you've just destroyed all the effort that they've done.
Totally. And fatigue, people underestimate the effects of fatigue on decision making. In fighting it's really obvious, and anybody who's sparred deep into some rounds, once you get tired, your whole process of decision making is totally different. Like someone throws a jab at you and you're like, I'm so tired, bending over or trying to slip this or moving away or staying light on my feet is more painful than just kind of lowering my head and just letting him punch me in the forehead, And you get these weird thoughts that clearly that's not the right choice. The right choice is to move, but your fatigue is so great that,
Yeah, and it slows down your thought process. It slows down your reaction time. It's tough. And when you're doing the 24-hour races, you get woken up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you've got to go and drive a race car at 200 miles an hour from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. after you've already driven maybe 6 hours before that. It's a bit tough.
For sure.
So
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what tips could you give people? Because we're not going to be driving an endurance race. You know, we're not going to be doing that. But there's occasions where we need to do a sprint. Maybe we're in school and we need to finish a paper, and it's going to be all night. Plus, we got a game that we got to play for our intramural team or whatever. Like weird stretches that happen where it's going to demand that we lose sleep, stay awake, stay focused, stay on our game for stretches of time. Like what tips can you give? Because you're obviously at the extreme end of that, 48 hours awake, doing life-threatening physical activities that require focus. You know, but for all of us, you know, we have those moments. So what tips can you give people?
So the most important is nutrition. So if you want an all-nighter, you cannot have a big ribeye with French fries and a milkshake for dinner. That's number one rule. You know, you have to eat right. You have to eat your veggies, like your mom said, and you just have to eat the right amount, at the right time, and know your body, because not everyone's nutrition is the same. You know, I need a little more carbs than you do to last throughout a stint of doing whatever. You know, so
how do you know how many carbs I need, Gustavo? You have fucking like a carnival nutritionist. You just look at somebody like, aha.
It's just I just change things.
Yeah.
Anyways, so everyone is different, right? And through working out, through working out and practicing and just doing things, you know your body and you know what you need and you know what you don't need, basically. So for me, the nutrition is number one, and then number two is the supplements. So, of course, at 3 a.m. in the morning, the only thing that's going to keep me focused, some Alpha Brain. You know, it's basic. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, before I get in the car, I can't have a big plate of chicken or pasta, or it just won't go down. So a good protein shake.
I find at 3 a.m. in the morning, Jack in the Box is what I prefer. But that's usually because I'm hammered.
Yeah, that's after quite a few beers and gin tonics, and that happens once in a while.
But when you're waking up at 3 a.m. to do something,
when you wake up at 3 a.m., you just don't feel like having Jack in the Box.
No, not advised.
And especially when you have to drive at 200 miles an hour, Jack in the Box might backfire.
And there's not a restroom
might
nearby.
Backfire literally.
Yeah. It might backfire on you.
Yeah.
So a protein shake, Alpha Brain before getting in the car is ideal. And once you're in the car, we do pit stops every 45 minutes for fuel and tires, and they give us drinks. So I tend to mix it between stops, some water and Red Bull to keep me awake, caffeinated. I'm a caffeine addict.
Yeah.
If it's not coffee, it's Red Bull. If it's not Red Bull, it's caffeine pills. I'm just a caffeine addict.
Oh, weird. Someone from Colombia that likes stimulants. Huh? I never would have guessed.
Yeah. Good thing I get drug tested very often.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's probably stringent in all those international sports. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, caffeine is that interesting beast. Like, you know, yesterday, for example, it was 21 hours awake or something like that. I didn't sleep much. Just had a lot of stuff to do. And, you know, it's always that interesting balance between, like, do I start the caffeine train? You know, because once you start,
you can't get off.
You're on it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like regular intervals of coffee, tea, matcha, you know, guarana, whatever you got to do to make it through. And I made the early audible to go for the coffee right away, and I was like, all right, here we go. Yeah. You know, fortunately, we got a bunch of delicious ways to consume caffeine. But
no, and the coffee's good, and I've done some off-road trips down in Colombia, and I've driven for 36 hours straight. In the 24 hours, you drive 3 hours on, 6 hours off, 3 hours on, 6 hours off. But this time it was a long off-road trip, like 1,000 miles.
Kind of like the Baja?
Sort of like the Baja, but not with such badass trucks. Yeah. A little bit less prepared, and we got stuck every freaking 30 minutes and muddy, and it was tough, but it was 36 hours non-stop driving.
And you just did this for fun, or was it a race?
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun. It's fun, man. It's fun. And then you go home and then sleep for like 24 hours, and it's all good. Yeah. But man, the coffee and Red Bull we consumed that trip was I don't even want to go back and measure it because I
it might have been exceeding levels that should be talked about on air. Yeah, for human consumption. Well, you got a race this weekend, and it might rain. How you're mentioning a little bit about that, but how is it racing 200 miles an hour in the fucking rain?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's the rain tires that we have. They're proper rain tires, so that if you use them when it's dry, they will run out in 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have any more tires. So they're super soft, and they've got such a tread that they're meant to move like 20 gallons per second or something like that of water. So the spray that they throw up in the air is massive. So if you're in the lead, it's okay. You can see around. Even if it's raining, you've got some wipers and you know where you're going. But when you're in the middle of the pack, or even if you're second right behind the leader, you just can't see a thing. You can't. You just see white blur and maybe a headlight here and there. And
so pole position is huge in a rainy
yes,
race.
It's the most important thing. If it's raining,
because there's a very decent chance you can start off in the lead and just keep
just
it.
Pull away. Yeah. With the rain, yes. But it's super sketchy. There's no grip. Like the lap times go up like 20 seconds per lap. Just because the grip level goes down to almost zero. It feels like driving on ice when you're comparing like driving when it's dry with slick tires and all the downforce and all the speed and the car's designed to do that versus driving in the rain. It's just like driving on snow or ice. That's how it feels, and you gotta do it at the limit, and it can bite you on any second.
Yeah, I believe
and
that.
then there's the German dentist driving on their limits.
And then the tortoise shells that are out there.
That's sketchy because, and that's the tough part about racing, because you can be on the lead, you're doing your job just how you're supposed to be doing, and then a German dentist spins right in front of you, and there's nothing you can do to avoid him, and you just smash him right in the middle, and your race is over. So it's tough but at the same time, you gotta be like super aware, and if you see like some guy is sketchy, just back off, see how it plays out, and pass him.
It's like when you're driving home from the bars at 2 o'clock, and you see that person swerving on the road. Give him a little distance.
This guy's got a couple.
Let that asshole fucking figure things out and make your pass quickly if you need to.
And get away.
Yeah, put some distance between them.
Yeah, it's how it works.
Yeah,
it's how it works. But it's good fun, man. It's makes it interesting, and then the strategy comes into play of when are you going to stop for fuel, if you're going to go long, if you're going to go short, if you're going to stick to the plan, if you're going to put tires. So then, the track is sort of drying, but is it quite ready for slick tires or not? And that's a big decision to make.
Sure.
When the track is drying, it's big advantage to be the first one out on slick tires, because when the track is ready, your tires will be up to temperature and you can push. And like I said, the difference is 20 seconds per lap versus slick tire versus rain tires. So there's a lot of time to gain. But at the same time, if you put the rain tires too soon and the track is still a little bit too wet, driving on the rain with slick tires basically is just suicide.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. There's nothing harder to do with a race car.
Yeah.
So the strategy comes into play, and it becomes very interesting at that point. But hopefully my job won't be so hard this weekend, and let's hope it's going to be nice and sunny like it is in Texas.
Yeah. Hopefully it will be. Do you just piss your pants if you have to go, or what do you do?
Normally I try and go before, make sure I go right before I go into the car. And I've tried to piss my pants one time, a couple times that I've been like, I really need to go. And I asked him, hey, how many stints do I have left? Oh, you got 2 more stints. 2 more stints is an hour and a half. And, it's bumpy. The car is tough, and you got to brake and push to the limit, and you're like peeing. And this takes away some concentration when you're like about to piss yourself, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that to pee, you got to be relaxed. You can't be like stressed and pee.
Nothing like 220 mile an hour stage fright.
Yeah.
That's the real deal.
So I did try to pee once, but nothing came out. So I just had to hold it for the rest of the stint and pissed afterwards. But it doesn't happen. And then it's so hot in the car that you're sweating so much that your liquids are being consumed
getting depleted anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, Where can we watch the race? Is it going to be televised this weekend?
Yeah, so the races are live on Fox Sports 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be live at Saturday around noon or so. And IMSA.com, IMSA.com is the website for the championship.
Yeah.
You can check everything out. And my Twitter and Instagram, I think we tweeted it. It's at Gustavo Yacaman.
Yeah.
So you can follow it through there and check out all the cool cars that we got.
Yeah. How do you like your team? How do you like your car? How do you like your chances coming into this Sunday?
It's good, man. We've got brand new car in the U.S., brand new engine. We're going to make crazy amount of horsepower compared to what we had the previous races. The car is a little bit heavier, so it's going to be tougher on the brakes and cornering. But at the same time, we have more downforce. So on the high-speed corners, we should be a lot quicker. So we'll see. We don't know. We haven't raced with this car.
That's why they call it prototype, huh?
Yeah.
Because you're just figuring shit out.
Exactly. You just every weekend you're finding new things.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be really interesting, but I think we stand a pretty good chance.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. One last thing I wanted to touch on. I heard that you have you do some work with some endangered species down in Colombia and in rainforest. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I have a non-profit organization down in Colombia. And we do some forest restoration. Mm-hmm. So basically what a lot of companies do when they say, oh, we're a green company and we do all this eco stuff, blah, 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 is that they go and buy acres of land and plant 5 million trees of the same species that in 20 years they're going to be chopped down and used for paper or wood or fuel or whatever, and then they plant some again. And that isn't really reforestation, because in 20 years, when you cut the tree down, you're gonna you're gonna create as much CO2 as you've already saved from having the tree. So what we do is we do some restoration. So it's when farmers come in and destroy a forest because they want to put their kettle in there, or maybe because there was a big fire and the whole side of a mountain got wiped out. So we go in there and restore the forest by planting the trees that were there before. So we plant 80 different species of trees and plants and bushes to kind of recreate that forest again, so that all the animals that used to live there can come back into the same natural habitat that they were before. And right now we're working in a town called Villa de Leyva, which had a massive wildfire 4 years ago. And what happens in a mountain when you have a forest is that when it rains, all the roots and the trees
they keep the mudslides from happening.
Exactly, right? They keep the mudslides from happening, but they also keep the water. They store water, and they don't let the water run off the mountain right away. So when it rains and you don't have any trees, all the water goes straight into the rivers and straight into town, and everything gets flooded. When you have trees, all the roots and all the plants, everything, they slow down that process of the water going down the streams and down the mountain, so that when it's not raining, that town still has some water, and when it's raining, the water that they're getting is not all the water that it rained. So right now, when it's not raining in this town, they're having massive droughts. And when it rains, they're having massive floods and mudslides and things like this. So we're starting to do the restoration in that town, and it's been going well. We've planted around 6,000 trees now.
Nice.
Our numbers are not as big as those that I was telling you before, like massive companies that go and just say, oh yeah, we're eco and we plant 1 million trees. You know, our job is a little more scientific, and we work with scientific groups in the area that know the trees and know what they need, and it's a slower process, but it's a much better and long-lasting process that what we do. So it works. It's pretty cool.
Where can people find that if they want to help out?
So that's in admirelife.org.
Okay.
That's the foundation's name, Admire Life.
Admire Life.
Yeah.
Excellent, man. Well, tell us where people can follow you on social media, and what are your handles? And
my handles is at Gustavo Yacaman. Gustavo, Gustavo. Yacaman is Yacman. And I think we've already tweeted and Instagram a couple things, and there's going to be some videos coming out soon of me sweating my butt off at the academy.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, and good luck in the race, man.
No, man, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
Right on. Take it easy, my friends. Peace.